Good morning. How's everybody?
Well, that's good.
I'm Allison, and I heart Asterisk geeks.
I'm Ed Guy. We were given the task of introducing Mark Spencer. We were trying to figure out what to say.
How do you do that? How do you introduce a guy like Mark? Everybody knows him.
He's been, well, most people here have used his work for years, whether it's Game or whether it's Asterisk or any of the programs he's put together. He's impacted us in many different ways.
Absolutely.
And professionally, on a personal level or hobbies as well. I don't know, if you get a good look at Mark's t-shirt.
Yes. Trying to change the world, they just won't give him the source code.
But that was very appropriate.
Absolutely.
I think that's something we're going to start a module on that.
Absolutely. Now, wasn't Mark voted?
He got 30 under 30 this year for Inc. Magazine. That was quite an accomplishment. Things are going well business-wise down in Huntsville. And
so, I mean, we could read his bio. You all know him. So why don't we just turn it over to the man himself, Mark Spencer.
So first off, thanks to everybody that came to the teaching party yesterday. That was a lot of fun. I'm the host. And thank Lauren for that. So this is the third Astricon, and other than okay. This is the third Astricon. See, even I thought to put my phone on silent. And ask anybody that works with me. But being the third Astricon, I think it's about time that we address a very important issue within the entrance community. There we go. Okay. 3 years, guys. It's time we get this right. It is not Asterix or Asterisk or Asterix or Asterisk or asterisks or asterisks. It is asterisk. Asterisk. Okay, everybody? One.
Asterisk.
Okay. Good. Now, moving along with the rest of the presentation here. So normally I do my presentations the night before, but this time I actually did it 2 nights before. So hopefully I'll feel better here. Okay. So the title of the talk here is Taking Over the World in 5 Easy Steps. So, and actually I had to come up with that title before I had actually thought through what all the steps would be. So kind of interesting to retrofit this now. But first step, of course, is to come up with a list of 5 steps. So the first real step, right, is to understand what the challenge is, right? What exactly is what we're trying to accomplish here, right? And the first part of that is to know what the foes are, right? And of course, surprised sometimes who doesn't know what open source is. It is kind of interesting. But I think everybody here in this room does, that's for sure. One thing to do is to contrast, by the way, the difference between going to an event like Ron, where Asterisk is, like this rock star program that is just really exciting, versus, say, going to Linux World, where people are like, so is this bondage? And you have to kind of explain what a phone is, and you're like, oh, we're open source. And they're like, yeah, and? So anyway, it's important to remember that, but really, even more fundamentally than that, it's about lack of control and choice, right? That's the real problem here, right? Because what's made this useful is its openness in many, many senses. It's not just the openness of the traditional open source and all that, but also about the openness of protocols and the openness of having ways for people to be able to contribute and support multiple kinds of drivers. And openness has to be kind of a way of operating rather than just a very tightly defined set of rules. So yeah, know your foes, and who's the host? Meaning, you have to be careful sometimes, this sort of bait and switch, right? Because you get people that sort of talk open, and then, once you get in, they've got something else, or the wolf in sheep's clothing. So, obviously, Digium, right, with our dual licensing model and everything, we recognize that there's sort of a world of open source, and there is a world of proprietary stuff out there too. That everything's got to be able to be connected, because you don't always have everything in open source that you want to have in open source. But it's important to know, kind of what's what, right? What's open and what's not, and to evaluate your decisions based on the whole thing, right? And one thing that's important, by the way, is sometimes it's good to be just a bit naive. I mean, I had never configured, in fact, to this day, I've never configured the PBX other than Asterisk before my life, right? So, you don't always want to know everything about a problem, because you might never start, right, if you really knew all the challenges in it. So step 2 is to engage an army of contributors. So what we do to try to do that is to provide communication and resolution of issues, especially through Mark 5 Tracker and the mailing list and forums and so on. Support the ability of contributors to continue improving their work, including coordinating developer conferences, providing hardware and other resources for contributors and their work. And of course, a shameless plug here, offering employment opportunities. So we're hiring and not just developers. I think it's important to note that I use the term contributors here to mean not just developers, but also people that do documentation and that do bug marshalling and so on. So if you're interested in Asterisk, just maybe the DG, I'm sure you can go talk to them. And of course, we want to encourage and reward contributor passion, right? When you look at the size of the contributor base for Asterisk, and compare it to, say, the number of employees at, say, Nortel or Avaya or Cisco, right? I mean, it's just stunningly different, right? And yet, people are throwing out Cisco systems and Avaya systems and Nortel systems and replacing them with Asterisk. And the key differentiator between those companies and Asterisk is the passion of the people who contribute, because it's not just a job, right? But it's what they want to do and what they're passionate about doing, and it makes all the difference in the world. So step 3 is take your message to the people, right? So what are some ways of doing that? Well, most recently, the Asterisk GUI framework, which is a system that we've developed. It's currently in a sort of an alpha level right now. You can get it off of our subversion tree, and I can talk to anybody about that later on. But when you think about what your user of Asterisk, other than just sort of the technology person, what your end user is going to want, a lot of it has to do with making these technologies easier to use. But everybody has a different concept of what that means, especially when it comes to graphical interface. So the GUI framework is a new technology we've developed so that it becomes easy to build vertical market GUIs. It's just editing HTML, and you can crank them out in no time. I can give a demo later on or something. Obviously, the Digium and Asterisk websites, probably both of which are looking for a little bit of a spruce up soon. Astricon, thanks, Stephen. And the partner pavilion Savon. And of course, one of the really cool things for getting the message out has been Trixbox, actually. So the fourth step is to build and vigilantly protect your foothold, right? So Asterisk has obviously already made it out. We've captured our first cities and to some degree our first country, which is pretty cool. But you also have to really protect these areas, right? Both geographic areas and your markets. And to do that, you've got to encourage and extract feedback from everybody, right? So that's one thing I want to do kind of at the end of my talk here a little bit. Of course, we have our bug tracker and customer service and things like that. And another thing that we've really made an especially strong effort to do at Digium is to focus on product quality. So we have increased the size of our product quality team, and we're getting them involved on the open source side of Asterisk as well as doing the BE testing, and really working to do everything we can to support not just the Digium products, but also to support Asterisk at large. And the fifth step here is to expand your presence around the world. And this is part of what's really interesting, just talking to people here at Astricon that have come from all around the world. Of course, we support multiple languages, including the prompts. There are at least 3 GUIs for Asterisk in Japanese alone, which I think is really incredible, right? To see how many people have taken this technology to different places. Asterisk has a very strong and growing European presence. And one of the other parts of this, of course, is to remember and recognize the support of all the people that kind of got us there, and be grateful to the people that have helped you along the way. Because, I'm sort of credited, I guess, with starting Asterisk, but in reality, Asterisk is the development of a whole lot of people and a whole lot of contributors that got it to where it is. So how do you know how you're doing anyway? So we're already at an interesting topic of some big dinner conversations, such as at VoiceCon in the executive forum. There was a executive of a large PBX company who was asked about open source, how it was going to play in the telecom market. And he said that in 3 to 5 years, he thought it would be, pretty distributed. And there was another executive from a very large services company, telecom service company, probably one of the oldest. And he said, well, I agree that open source is going to be everywhere, but I disagree with your time frame because we're already having people asking us to connect up with SibTrunking today using Asterisk. And if you want to see it work, you can go check it out at the Digium Asterisk booth. Like, wow, that's a pretty cool plug. And according to Google, Asterisk PBX is found on about 5 million different websites around the world. Digium on about 2.7 million. Including this particular one here, which is kind of interesting. It's another sign that you made it, right? When you're big enough that there's somebody that dislikes like soon enough that they're going to put a website together about you. I mean, that's when you know you made it, right? And so yeah, that was pretty cool. Although one of my friends tells me that the whole brain-sucking alien look really works for me. So I'll try that. Well, last, I really want to give a big thank you here, because there are a lot of people that I have a special thanks to, including obviously all the attendees and exhibitors who came here. The Asterisk developers and contributors, of course, Sokol and Associates. A special thank you to those who contribute documentation through the Void Wiki or other places. I remember many years ago there was a troll on the mailing list who actually was suggesting that Digium was actively discouraging documentation on Asterisk in order to promote our consulting business, which I thought was pretty funny. One of the most thankless jobs, again, are the bug marshals. So I really want to reach out and thank you guys that spend your time doing that, trying to get bugs through and make sure they get fixed. And I also want to thank the Digium Core Asterisk development team, especially Kevin, who's really helped make this thing happen. So, I don't think that was the way it was supposed to go. Oh well, so the last section here is going to be for question and answer. But I want to start out by asking a question first of everybody here, which is, what can we do at Digium to be able to better support all of you in terms of things around Asterisk or the community, or products or anything like that? I would like to hear some answers from all of you guys, and if there's anything that, for any reason, you don't feel comfortable sharing here, please come talk to somebody with a Digium shirt afterwards. But if anybody's got some questions, I'd like to hear.
All right, I'll speak from an African perspective, where I come from. We don't have many Nortel, Alcatel systems running. These regions are right for you to move in the first time with Asterisk. So in terms of pricing, for components, there's all three there. They do a good job, but we also need to look at it. It's not helping. All right, I think I'm loud enough.
Okay.
I think we need to come up with regionally focused training sessions.
Okay.
For example, in Africa, we have North African Network Operators Group. We had a session on Asterisk on one of the days. We also need to look at the pricing and distribution within particular markets based on geographical distribution. I think that will help quite a bit.
Okay. I appreciate that input. Anyone else?
Mark, do you have any plans for a multi-port ICSI?
Do we have any plans for multi-port ICSI? Well, we have the appliance, obviously, and one of the subsets of what that appliance can do is to act as obviously a multi-port ATA, but it runs, unlike the ICSI, or actually the EXI, but we'll let that go. The appliance actually runs Linux and Asterisk, so it can do anything that Asterisk can do. Have you guys seen the appliance, by the way? Good. Okay. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I think it's pretty important that Digium focus especially on upgrade path. To be able to apply patches that don't break things.
Apply patches from
Improvements and fixes to the product that don't break the existing product without having to reinstall and stuff. It's more towards the product like Box, where you can make improvements to it without breaking things. I can't speak so much directly to Asterisk because I've been working in the Box.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we don't maintain TripBox, so I don't know changes in and say, look, this is the development branch, you need to let more development stuff get in. And wanting to have some semblance of stability in that, right? And so that's why we really came out with the model of having the open source release branch, the development branch, and then the business edition formally regression tested, formal PQ process product. All right, I think in the back there first.
Do you see any of the big network suppliers to support Digium, like for example, Astricon or big companies like that? What would be the position of that?
Do we see big networking suppliers supporting Astricon?
Like Astricon.
Supporting Digium.
Asterisk.
Or Asterisk. I would say we are increasingly seeing Asterisk involved in some products of larger companies. I think some people have noted that one of the new Cisco products uses Asterisk for voicemail, for example, and which is kind of interesting in itself. Yeah, I don't know about really that many specifics on that, but I would say that the large companies are definitely very aware of Asterisk at this point. And the reaction has been a lot different. For the most part, the big companies are not out there trying to poo-poo the idea of open source. I think they kind of learned from the way that sort of backfired on Microsoft. So they're kind of being quiet about it for the most part. Although I did hear one story out of the technical sales group at Digium that there was a customer whose Toshiba rep told them, you don't want to install Asterisk, go look at the bug tracker, and they've got all these open bugs. Who wants to buy a product that's got bugs? It's like, yeah, where's the Toshiba bug tracker? How do you access that? Anyway, there was another question, I think.
More so from an end user perspective, when we're going out there to hopefully sell the Asterisk product, a question that occasionally comes up is, what is the future of Digium as far as plans, the stability, and I guess what are the chances that at some point in time Mark may not be around anymore, whether you get bought out by a bigger company or something of that nature? Just some insight on what you might see going forward.
Okay, and that's a good question. The first thing is, in terms of Digium as a company, right? I mean, of course, our long-term stability is based on our ability to build the right products that people like you guys want to go out there and buy, right? And so it's important that we always want to get your feedback on what we can do in terms of establishing our roadmap in the direction you guys want to see, and in terms of making sure our products have the best quality and everything that makes you want to buy. Having said that, Digium has had consistent quarter-over-quarter growth since 2002, and we've been profitable actually since 2002. And we actually just closed our first VC round from Matrix Partners just a few months ago. So in terms of economic stability, I would say we're pretty much there. Even setting that aside, again, one of the values of having open source, right, is that whatever happens, Asterisk is out there, and it's out there in open source, and there's nothing that can change any of that, right? For better or for worse, right? One of my personal challenges has been that it's easy from a logical perspective to sort of lay out what all the good things and what all the risks are of open source. But, at an emotional level, being that Asterisk is something I've worked on for many, many years, it can be challenging to sort of separate myself emotionally from some of the things that I see, because you have a lot of people now, not just who are using Asterisk in ways that are supportive to us, but who are using Asterisk in ways that are definitely detrimental to us and to the work that we try to do, right? But the fact that those things exist, right, shows what the strength of open source is for the end consumer, because it means that we constantly have to be earning your business, and that you'll always have other alternatives that are out there, if for whatever reason we don't.
So one of the things I think that many people in the room have done over the years with Asterisk is we've all had to sell Asterisk to our organizations. You know, whether we're bringing it in an enterprise or whether we're trying to sell to a client. And one of the things that's notably missing is how do you fight against an embedded or proprietary solution? So is it possible that Digium can produce with your money financial resources some generic marketing tools that people in this room who aren't selling Digium or selling for Asterisk could use to compete directly against the kind of marketing things that are being produced by the embedded proprietary?
Well, one of the things that we've been doing recently is establishing a reseller program to help provide the right resources for people to be able to sell solutions. Obviously, a Digium Asterisk reseller is a little bit different from a traditional reseller, right? In that there's a heck of a lot more value that your typical reseller is going to add in that case. But in doing that, we are also preparing things like case studies and promotional marketing materials to be able to go along with that to help support that and to push the ability to sell, obviously not just Digium, but to sell Asterisk as well, because it's really the whole picture. I will say that just from what I've seen, there is so much business of people who already want Asterisk that, you know, today, right, this minute, there's so many people that want it that it's not even something that you have to sell as hard as you will in another 3 or 4 years when the low-hanging fruit is gone, right? All these things are really necessary as we start to carry Asterisk past the people who see the value of open source, right, and into the people who just want a solution that works and that's easy to use and that's cost effective. And that's when I think a lot of what you're talking about is especially valuable. All right, any other? Oh.
I've seen a lot of applications for Asterisk here where it's being used as a gateway or voicemail or some kind of a niche type application, whereas as an ISP, I don't know how many people I speak for, I'd like to use it, or I have been using it for everything. It's a soft switch essentially. And the one piece that I see lacking that I'm wondering if Digium is interested in working on, or if somebody out there wants to put into open source or even wants to develop a proprietary interface, would be something that's more conducive to the end user experience, that actual user that's got the telephone on their desk. And something that might compete with a Cilantro or a BroadSoft, where you have the ISP that has ultimate control over the dial plan, and then you have the interconnect that's selling the product to the end user, who might have another level, and then you have the system administrator at the customer site, and you have the end user that has the capability to do his forwarding and his find me, follow me, and his contact list, and his click to dial, the kind of things that you find in a GUI from a BroadSoft. That's my problem, is competing against the GUI that those people are getting when they buy from somebody that's got kind of a platform. So I'm wondering if someone can address that.
I have definitely seen a lot of very interesting work in that direction. One product I know of is called Snap, and one of my friends actually put that together, and it sits in it's a Windows application only, right? But it actually enables all your Word documents and Excel documents and web pages and everything to have click-to-dial functionality. And he's been kind of expanding it more in that direction. There's an industry analyst recently named David Yedwath, who recently said that in his vision of the future, there's going to be 2 telecom providers. It's going to be Microsoft and open source, right, in the end. And the key, I think, even though most people may not think of Microsoft as a serious competitor in the telecom industry today, I think they're going to be in a good position to leverage the desktop to try to get there. And it will be important. that we be able to have the right tools for Windows integration, as bizarre as that is to hear me say, right? You have to have the right tools to integrate with Windows so that you can have that integration and not allow Microsoft to kind of push you out because of that end user experience. So yeah, I think those tools are very important. There's some stuff already kind of in that direction, but I think that's a direction that that's going to be very important going forward. We built some interfaces into Asterisk to help promote that, like the manager interface. We also have made the manager interface available over HTTP, which is actually how the GUI framework works. So there are definitely ways we've tried to promote that, but the client software, is obviously very key, and we're seeing a few things in there.
No, the Google and the Jingle thing are a long way to getting that into their team.
There are many ways to try to tackle the problem, and I would say that XMPP is certainly one of the ways that people are trying to do it, both with Google Talk and with other XMPP clients. I remember talking to Google before they had actually made the formal announcement about Google Talk, and my first reaction was, why on earth are you guys making another voice over IP protocol, right? Like as if there weren't enough already. But then once I understood the idea that, hey, you've already built a federated instant messaging backplane, you might as well use it to establish a framework for sending calls, it really made a lot of sense. And there are definitely people building on that. It seems to be pretty competitive in the standards field, right, for IM and for presence. So I think we'll see more of that.
What do you see Digium or the Asterisk community's role in standards going forward? Each kind of back to something, becoming the backup standard.
Yeah, well, actually, Ed Guy there is the one that sort of led the EECS standard up. I think there are also other technologies like Dundee that might be something that should be standardized, whether it's exactly Dundee or something kind of close to that. We haven't participated a lot in the standards process in that, Asterisk technologies are kind of developed the way that standards used to be developed, which is you develop the software and you made sure it worked, and then you went and wrote the standard based on what you had done and what worked, rather than going out and creating a standard, then writing software, finding problems, and having to constantly go back and rewrite the standard, which is obviously the SIP approach. So, I mean, now you've got this, 2,000-page gigantic pile of SIP, basically, that you have to go through and understand to be able to implement. And we'd like to avoid that, but we're thankful for people like Ed who have gotten into that process. I hope that Digium as a company will be able to do more, but even in the absence, obviously we've got people who are doing that work. Other questions? Wide open, nothing else.
Mark?
Oh. I think he beat you to it.
Hardware question. I'm just wondering if you're planning on moving your PCI architecture towards PCI Express.
I'll have to ask my marketing guy if I'm allowed to comment on that.
Sure.
Okay. Yes, PCI Express is.
Gilbert just came out with it. I'd like to see a Digium product.
Yeah. It's definitely
On the way.
I can safely say on the website, but until we have the official announcement, not on the website. I'm sorry. I meant to say on the roadmap, but until we get the okay for marketing, I'm not going to give a specific date on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little more support to that last question about marketing materials.
Yeah.
I mean, for all the right reasons, Digium, you trademarked the Astric's name, you started the bar reselling program. But if the intent is to build the base, really increase the market share and scare the snot out of the PBX vendors, then having some professional marketing materials, competitive comparisons, and things that the
So I would say that the most powerful marketing material that Asterisk has right now is the fact that you can go download it and install it, right? The reason that Asterisk exists today at some large enterprises is because people could just download it and make it work, and then once it worked, then they were interested in talking, right? Clearly, the materials we're trying to develop in the VAR program are going to be important in being able to support that. And the trademark policy is also important in being able to support that, to make sure that it is clear what is Asterisk and what is not Asterisk, right? Because you can't have a product that, you know, if we say we're going to, you know, perform product quality checks on this and we're going to perform intellectual property checks on this, right? It has to be very clear what is Asterisk, right? And what is not Asterisk to be able to support, you know, precisely the same thing. So, but I don't know if I answered your question on the marketing materials or not.
But I'm speaking, of course, to the end users who don't necessarily know a thing about anything other than their relationships with the PDX vendors. It's just the end users that want to know in a powerful way what I'm differentiating.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can find some of that material today, even just on our website, right? And obviously there's some of the talks and stuff, but that is definitely part of the materials that Julie and Bill over there, I better not point this laser at them, but two people in the white shirts right over there, right, are working on. And I would encourage you very much after the talk to you know, kind of pin them down and ask them specific questions or tell them specific things that you want to see in those materials. Greg.
I would, just to address that a little bit more, I think that there's three different strata of people that deploy and sell Asterisk solutions and Digium solutions. There's obviously Digium's consulting group at the top that does their thing, and then there's the reseller channel, and then there's the consultants and the people underneath. And I think your point, the gentleman over there's point, was to provide that low layer support for the people that, I mean, I could never become a reseller because that's not, you know, it's against my core values to actually have anything like that. But long story short, Linux has been successful because of viral marketing, because it got into the data centers, it got underneath the desks, under the radar, and I think if you want Asterisk to take over the world, you have to take that same approach, which is why I think that the single best marketing piece, I would disagree with Mark, is not Asterisk being downloaded, it's actually the community that's out there and saying, hey, come check this out. So a lot of what I try to do is to try and get Linux users groups and other people to check it out. I try to get it out to system administrators and say, hey, I know you as an IT guy are going to be taking over the phone system someday. Check this out. But I do agree that if I'm trying to sell to end users, it would be really nice to say, here's a look at a Cisco solution at $1,800 a phone, and here's an Asterisk solution at $700 a phone. I've had to build that myself, but yeah, no, don't sell the features, guys. Sell a solution.
Can I get the one back?
I guess I'd like to kind of follow up on this and say that I'm not really looking for any marketing materials from Digium or Asterisk. I think I've got that under control. I'd really like to see the focus on defining what the distribution model is going to be. I'm wondering if I'm going to be eventually buying my Digium hardware from Tech Data, or if my customer will be picking it up at Best Buy. It's not been real clear what's going on. I think the reseller program has been in the works for too many months, and I don't really understand where things are going.
Well, these guys right there.
And I've talked to them. I've heard that you're making progress there, but I'd say, look, don't create any brochures. Create a clear model for how you're going to distribute the product.
Thank you for that. Wait.
For like the way you put it, for the consultants and the people underneath, what's going to happen with the DCAP program?
What's going to happen with the DCAP program?
Yeah.
Well, we're actually opening up the DCAP and training. Bill Hall, who's in the orange shirt over there, has been working on trying to get the training materials sort of standardized and establish a program so that people that want to provide training can provide training, especially in native languages, and that we can get people into those courses and help I would say it's definitely not easy. So you definitely want to be prepared for it.
There's a lot of virtualness in your presentation, talking about forums and the website, things like that. This conference has been really awesome because it's about people. And one of the great lessons I took away from Microsoft's history, was, especially in the early days, was the focus they had with user groups and the groundswell of just people who were doing cool things getting together. And I noticed you didn't even mention user groups in your presentation. So next year, I'm just hoping you will.
That is a very good point. I remember when I went to the Toronto Asterisk user group, and the idea that there was even such a thing as an Asterisk user group was just amazing to me. And I think I've been to the New York Asterisk user group as well. Surprisingly, we don't have one in Huntsville. Yeah, but it's, yeah, I mean, I think user groups are a big part. In fact, actually, the first conference I ever spoke about Asterisk at was actually a conference in Nashville called Freaking. I've actually missed for about the last 2 or 3 years for various reasons, but and that's kind of a user group. You could sort of a wolf pack. Okay. Close enough. There's another question around here.
I run the Asterisk Users Group. Anyone else is looking to start groups, I'm interested in talking to those community papers.
Yeah, and I think that's something also that we talked about in the new Digium website, is to try to better support that and list them out better. So again, if you'll talk to these guys, it would be really good.
I also am one of the organizers for Ohio Linux Fest and Digium. We worked with Digium to try to get Asterisk out and all the people that attend there. So if anybody's interested in talking to me about that and try to work on that, please grab it.
And if anyone knows how to make phones more interesting for people that don't normally care about phones, I would be very interested in that, because it has been my observation that most people just really don't care about phones. But the people who do care about phones really care about phones. I appreciate the feedback there. Any other questions?
I'm interested in seeing a PCI card that had like 8 FXO interfaces on it, but was still smaller than half the length.
Smaller than full length?
That's what I meant, smaller than full length.
Yeah. Boy, wouldn't that be interesting? So, yeah, hold that thought for just a little bit. You guys are like,
I missed your first part of your presentation, and I was curious as to your point in your roadmap where you plan to do more on the video side. Did you bring video to the desktop as like a software?
Well, I think as video phones become more interoperable than they are today, video will start to play a bigger role. We already have video voicemail support and stuff like that. I think it's certainly interesting, some of the work that's being done with video phones, both in terms of interoperability and in terms of reaching some pretty exciting price points now. It used to be video phones were, over $1,000, right? And now they're less than half that.
Just seems like Apple's got a pretty strong market share with iChat and Apple technology that works really well.
Well, video phones have been around since, well, a very long time. In fact, let's see, who here would be old enough to know the very first video phone?
1964.
Right.
World's Fair.
That's right. So, and it required quite a substantial amount of cabling, right, to be able to
T1.
do that. The thing is, not everybody always wants to be seen when they're on the phone, and I think that's part of what has kind of slowed it down. I was actually on a panel at this conference called IP for IT, which we probably don't want to, well, I don't know anything about the conference itself, but this panel was amazing, right? because there were all these people that were all these, all about being immersed in video and conferencing, and one of the interesting concepts out of that panel were some people who had actually done work on avatars, so that your expressions could be there, but you could look like a totally different person, or at least, addressed, alert, person. So personally, I think it's going to be interesting to see if the avatar approach starts making more headway as opposed to just a pure video approach for the most part. Yes, sir.
As long as the plugs are being made about users group, I want to get it right here. There is a Southern California Asterisk users group, and can be reached, well actually, if you type in on Google, Southern California Asterisk users group, it's #1 spot on Google, so if anybody's interested in that area.
Those of you that have users groups, by the way, if you want any kind of materials from us to be able to support things, whether it's marketing materials or if you're trying to do demos, maybe hardware or anything like that, let us know. We'll see what we can do to support you guys.
Can you assign a contact within the company?
Julie Webb. J Webb, JWEBB @digim.com. Volunteer you there, Julie.
Do you already are going to support wideband codecs and Asterix?
I believe as of yesterday, actually, Kevin had his support for G722. And what? Monday. Okay. And did we add all the prompts in? Are they in? They're there, but they don't work. Okay. So I guess they'll be fixed.
Yes.
The only part that what?
Probably today.
Probably today. Okay. The part that probably won't work will be the conferencing. Yet that's going to be some effort to get there, but at least we'll have some basic wideband support for our students over here at Polycom, right?
And actually, the Polycom phones in the booth that are making HD calls now are doing that.
Okay, cool. All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, thanks again for coming out here. And I really appreciate the opportunity to see all of you and to see your interest in coming all the way out here for this show.